It's Tuesday, August 16th, and we are at the CNET studios in New York City with Roger Chang and Michael Sorrentino for episode 96 of the 359 podcast. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, viewers. Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, right? Okay.
Yes.
Were you not listening to the last 10 seconds?
No, I kind of blank out there during the intro.
Welcome to How You Make a Podcast.
Welcome to the 359. We're about to get started shortly. With me, as you notice, is not Ben Fox-Rubin. It is Mike Sorrentino.
Hi.
Our social maven, our social expert.
So wait, Ben's the fox, Aya's is a wolf, Mike's
what is
the
Mike?
coyote?
If you watch the Open Tab show, I basically been making drinks for the last several weeks, so maybe I'm the office.
Mike
the bartender?
Mike the bartender.
Mike the
I will take
bartender.
that
The bartender Sorrentino. All right.
Sweet.
Ben's going to be pissed that we stole his nickname shtick.
I know. All right, so we're going to be talking about Google's Project Fuchsia.
Fuchsia.
I keep getting that wrong. I don't know why. Fuchsia.
Fuchsia?
Yeah. What the fuchsia? All right. We're also going to be talking a little bit about virtual reality. Nvidia's come out with a series of chips that hopefully will get VR-capable laptops in your hands soon. And then lastly, and we kind of hate ourselves for talking about this, but we're going to talk about Justin Bieber. Mike is going to...
We'll just touch on it, but we'll go through the rabbit hole really quickly.
Well, you're going to go through the rabbit hole because I'm not.
Yes.
I know there's a beef between Justin Bieber and Selena Gomez, and that's about all I know. I want to know details from our social expert.
The definition of first world problems.
Standing by for all your hate comments.
Oh, I'm watching your YouTube chat, so send those hate comments there.
Yes, and as always, if you have any questions about anything ranging from Project Fuchsia to Justin Bieber,
Or why 3 grown men are talking about Justin Bieber.
yes, leave them in the comments section. Our producer Brian or Mike will pick out the best questions, and we will, as always, do our best to answer them.
Apple Adrenaline already says, what's fuchsia? We'll tell you shortly.
We're going to tell you really shortly. It's going to be awesome.
Now, let's get started.
Let's get started.
yes.
Let's do it.
Audio rolling, and in 3, 2...
Welcome to the 359, where we talk about the top tech news of the day and all the other crap we want to throw in. I'm Roger Chang, and with me is social maven Mike Sorrentino.
Hi, Matt. Hi there. Hi there.
Welcome.
Oh, Matt.
You just
I
called me
said
Matt, dude.
man, and then I pulled back.
Should we, let's start that one. No problem. That's
My apologies. Hi, YouTube.
That's all right. That's why this is taped.
3, 2...
Welcome to the 359, where we talk about the top tech news of the day and all the other crap we want to throw in. I'm Roger Chang, and with me is social maven Mike Sorrentino.
Hi, Roger. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for being here. There are 2 words that have been buzzing around the interwebs over the last few days, and they are Project Fuchsia.
Fuchsia.
Now, this Project Fuchsia is a Google experiment. They're trying to build a new operating system from scratch. It's designed to power modern phones and personal computers. So does that mean Google's trying to replace Windows and its own blockbuster Android OS?
We don't know yet, but it could be. It really could be. But it makes sense because if you look at Android, if it's based on its origins are in a way kind of old now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
Technically.
based on the Linux kernel, which has been around since 1991. So it's based off of an old platform. Granted, it's open source. People have been building upon it for years. That's why it's as stable as it is. But for Google, this is a chance to start fresh, with a brand new operating system, right?
And we never know what other product lines they could be considering down the road. That maybe there's going to be a smart home push, and maybe Android as it stands isn't good enough for that. So maybe they need something a little more customized. It's nothing new either. They already have the Chrome OS,
right?
Android OS.
This might be the answer to that issue they've had between Android and Chrome. Android has been phenomenally successful on phones and tablets. Chrome has been not so much. I mean, it's kind of like lukewarm, and even
seems like Android is going to be there in any day.
Right. So
times.
maybe Project Fuchsia is their way to kind of blend the 2 operating systems into one, basically a universal OS for all devices. But well, we'll see. I mean, that's
and perhaps it's going to power smart sprinklers.
Smart sprinklers. You're right. The Internet of Things. I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, it's right now it's a project. It's an experiment. Google loves to experiment with all kinds of things. We don't actually know if any of this will actually come to market, but it's an interesting possibility that Google is even willing to sort of cannibalize its own Android OS
and put it out there enough that by putting it publicly, we know it exists. We know some of the people that are working on it.
Yeah.
And just sort of see where it comes out. But after that, it's just puzzling and curious.
No, it's an impressive resume of people in terms of what they've done. The BOS, the Danger hip top operating system, QNX, WebOS, a lot of these execs or the team that they put together has got definitely a lot of experience between the four of them. So moving on, Nvidia has unveiled its new GTX 10 series graphics chips. Now, normally I would fall asleep when talking about something like this, but they're significant because these chips are powerful enough to run virtual reality for laptops. So it's a baby step forward for pushing VR into the mainstream.
But a big one, because many people don't want to get a giant desktop.
Yes, for sure.
And virtual reality's biggest hurdle, I think, has been money. People don't want to pay a lot of money.
It's extremely expensive. It's a big investment. You really have to want VR, buy a whole new rig as well as the VR headsets, systems to really get it going. So.
But Minecraft just came out on Oculus, and that to me is enough reason to get in. And Minecraft isn't that powerful of a game.
No.
So like if that could work out cheaply and easily, then run around castles and everything.
All right, lastly, stop the presses. Justin Bieber has deleted his Instagram account.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mike, you've been all over this rabbit hole.
I had to follow the rabbit hole when I saw it was trending on Twitter, unfortunately and embarrassingly.
So why is Bieber off Instagram?
Bieber and singer Selena Gomez used to date, and according to tabloid reports and whatnot, first Justin Bieber puts up a photo of himself and his another girl, Sophia Richie, rumored to be his girlfriend.
Sure.
And she writes a comment back. He gets hate over that from his own fans.
Okay.
She writes back, "Don't hate your fans," and maybe go off the Instagrams. And ultimately, he's just decided to delete it, which in some ways is actually responsible.
Yeah.
Because if you don't want your life on social media, pull yourself off of it.
Yeah.
But because he's
a
singer,
I feel like this is a stunt, and he's gonna be back on very shortly.
Yeah, they're gonna need it for marketing purposes.
Lastly, just a shout out to Jessica Dolcourt's Galaxy Note 7 review. If you've been waiting to see whether or not to buy that phone, you should check it out. Check out that story and more on CNET.com. I'm Roger Cheng.
I'm Mike Sorrentino.
Thanks for listening.
And that's a cut on the recording, and let's take a
right.
look at some of the comments here.
Oh, I'm eagerly awaiting these comments.
We have a few.
Well, Apple Adrenaline is actually just stating how they're very interested in the Fuchsia project. I'm curious why. Apple Adrenaline, would you elaborate on this in the comments?
I would say that Android has been around for a while. I think people, even iOS has been around for a while. People are probably hungry for a new take on an operating system. But the big thing is it's hard to create one, right? I mean, BlackBerry has learned this. WebOS with Palm has learned this. Windows Phone, Windows Mobile. These are all operating systems that big companies have poured a lot of money into, and they never really took off, right?
Yeah, and sometimes you just need to develop. For all we know, Fuchsia could be like something that gets merged into an existing system and then maybe overtakes it in time. Sometimes back when. I think there was a time where I think Apple had a different chip in their Macs.
Yes.
And then when they moved to Intel chips, it ended compatibility for some programs.
Yeah.
And so Google maybe down the road sees they'll need to take a step like that in order to get better.
I mean, look, this is
it's all speculation.
It is speculation. Our own Stephen Shanklin, who wrote the story, he also noted that if you wanted to give Project Fuchsia a leg up, you build a bit of compatibility into Android, right? Making it sort of somewhat backwards compatible. That would kind of prevent it from a true fresh start, but at the same time, if you've got sort of that built-in audience of Android migrating to Fuchsia, that would definitely help with that push.
I know one thing I think some app developers would love, but I don't know if it's ever going to happen, when some sort of platform that would make it where developers can make an app, period, and then maybe make it for one thing, but then it ends up being compatible to everything else. Windows was was saying they were going to do that, but it never came to
HTML5 was supposed to be that holy grail, not like a true native app, but sort of a web app, like build an HTML5 app, and it'll run, and it literally could run on any phone. That never really took off. Kind of disappointed with that, because that whole idea of build one app and have it run on every platform is sort of a dream for developers.
This Z4X person in our chat mentioned how Samsung needed to make their own operating system, and with Tizen, they've been doing that. Just they've been using Tizen for fridges instead of phones.
So they had a phone, by the way. They did have one phone that ran Tizen. It was a phone for the emerging markets. I believe it was sold in India. It didn't sell well. And they sort of they changed gears and switched over to it being sort of an IoT type platform. It's because, again, it's very difficult to push an operating system onto consumers who are used to one or two mainstays.
And Sharir says that we should look to a new system so that the Android king can be put to rest.
Wow, wow, that's harsh.
That's kind of an overarching sentiment coming down the line
There's always
here.
an
It's
underdog
strange.
feeling. Like, I was really into Palm's WebOS because I really
Yeah.
wanted to support a third platform.
Sure.
But then it just didn't peter out, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was a good operating system. I think it was hampered a bit by hardware that was not so great. I think if you remember the original Palm Pre, it was kind of a cheapy phone.
I had a touchpad, but it was on the clearance
Did you
sale.
buy the
Yeah, I bought it on
it was
clearance
like a
sale.
$50.
Let's be real.
How much was it? It was like $100.
It came out $500, I remember, and then went down to $250. And at the time, iPads
What was the
were still
what
$500.
was the clearance sale price?
I think it was $250.
$250?
Something like that. I remember it
hitting
being like I bought it a little more really quick.
I remember it hitting like 100 or something, and people were freaking out.
I think maybe it was around there. I remember it being easy enough
Like it
that
was
it was
hard
affordable.
at that point. You couldn't buy it because like it was everyone sort of stampeded and bought that $100 touchpad.
Yeah, I got it for my dad for the holiday, and he got a good few years out of it,
Yeah.
even after they pulled support completely over the operating
I mean,
system.
if all you do is browse the web, you're good, right?
And I backed a Kickstarter to put Android apps onto it, but the number of steps involved became a little too convoluted.
Yeah.
Shane Thomas is calling out, speculating that the future of the OS will be led by Microsoft Continuum, Google Fuchsia, and Ubuntu Convergence.
Interesting.
Bold statement.
Interesting that Apple is not in that mix at all. Interesting. Very
Well,
interesting.
After the last few days that we've been talking about what they're doing with their tablets and phones and how it's so underwhelming, and
Right.
that's not an unpopular sentiment right now.
Yeah,
They
look,
might have peaked.
and they've distinctly kept the Mac OS, or it's called Mac OS, iOS separate, and there doesn't really seem to be any indication that they're working on anything beyond that. So
If any company can find a way to connect everything and connect everything well, that is absolutely something that could overtake any of the walled gardens. But that's the problem. They usually have trouble having that, or one of those walled gardens will buy out that competitor.
right. I would say Microsoft Continuum, Google Fuchsia are good guesses. Ubuntu, I mean that's always been a niche operating system. I don't really see that.
With a
Going
very
mainstream.
dedicated niche audience.
Sure, dedicated, hardcore, but niche is the key thing. Like I don't know anyone. I don't like my parents are never going to buy an Ubuntu powered anything. Right.
No, but I mean, when you're a diehard fan, you're a lifelong fan.
Right, but
And
that's the thing.
I think this is who we're talking to.
For sure, absolutely, and I appreciate that. But I don't know if the future OS is going to be led by Ubuntu.
This person, Scott, says he would really like it if there was an OS that was Android, and then when you docked it, it became like Chrome OS, which was sort of what Asus had a line of tablets that did kind of that, where you took the phone, put it in a tablet dock, and then it became
Right.
bigger.
I mean, I think they're just going to have to like dump Chrome OS and just turn Android into something that they could work onto a laptop, right? Like or either that, or they've got to take elements of Chrome OS, put it into Android. Having those two discrete operating systems just seems like too much. And I'm watching Brian put in a emoji.
Yeah, until
Because our friend AP74 pointed out some linguistic issues with the terminology of fuchsia and how it translates, and I can't repeat them on the air. And I thought it was rather clever.
just saw it.
And
We
true,
can't.
because I am Dutch. So thank you for that.
All right. I'm going to go back to the comments and look at that.
Um,
Any other questions or comments?
well, I mean, Hunter Miller is pointing out that Samsung tried and it failed on this front.
Yes.
So-
Tizen was, I mean, they're still using Tizen for, TVs and, I don't know, refrigerators.
There's a post life to a lot of these things, like LG's WebOS. WebOS is now in LG
Yes.
TVs.
Yes.
But I mean, Google is a colossal giant. Do you think this could really be a flop, even if it was a flop?
They could have
No.
side projects up the wazoo.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's a flop. I mean, it really just depends. I mean, the transition from one generation of operating systems to another can always be tricky. Look at Microsoft, right? It went from a super dominant player to really basically giving away Windows 10 to get people to use it. So,
Jacob says that Google needs more continuity in their products, and with any luck, Fuchsia would be that could counterpoint
That's
or center point.
That's a really good point. I mean, one of the biggest knocks on Android is it's hugely fragmented, right? Like there's just all these different versions of Android. A lot of the older and cheaper phones still use outdated versions of Android that don't have the latest security patches. Maybe Fuchsia provides some sort of consistent experience for everyone. I don't know. We'll see.
Xander is making a really good Lord of the Rings reference, saying that if Google was to partner with like LG or Samsung, they could create an OS to rule them all.
But then there may be no competition.
Yeah, and also I don't know if Samsung and LG really want to work with Google to like create their own kind of OS.
It just made me giggle.
Yeah,
I could not hear that in Gandalf's voice.
We as consumers nearly always win when there's fights too, because then they'll be forced to make better features.
Yeah, no, competition's always a plus.
Simon wants to know your favorite OS. Both of you.
My favorite OS.
I bounce back and forth between everything. I mean, my phone's an iPhone, but I have a work phone with Google, and I use Google services on that iPhone all the time. So, like, the minute that there's a good iMessage, FaceTime thing on Google, and that would get me to talk to all of my friends, then it might not matter at all.
Yeah, I mean, I have an iOS phone. Well, I have an iPhone as well as an Android phone. I bounce back and forth between the two. I tend to use iOS a little bit more. Dark horse, I really always kind of liked the Windows Phone operating system. I mean, I never really wanted to buy one, but I always thought that it was kind of a slick looking OS, even though no one actually used it. So.
I use one as an MP3 player because
there you go.
All the Zune stuff, which Zune I really liked as a music platform.
I love the Zune actually. I was a big fan of the Zune.
And all that's still in there.
The tiny little Zune that was really thin and.
You might not want to advertise that.
The operating system or the OS behind it. I mean, that's what Windows Phone became, and it was actually a slick looking OS.
Fair. Just marketed poorly.
But it just didn't have, and keeps losing app support every month.
Right.
But that's a whole other thing.
But as a music player, I was fine with it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they should merge Chrome OS and Android? Could it work?
Yes. I mean, but I think Android would cannibalize pretty much all. I think it's more taking elements of Chrome and putting it into Android so it works better on larger displays.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of the trick. I think merging the two, that's a pretty tricky proposition.
But they're already like they're putting the Android apps onto Chromebooks.
Yes.
So that way those apps can be downloaded and just run better than
Right.
if they're streaming through a Chrome browser all the time.
Right.
And so it's really close. It just seems like one day they'll up and announce that Android 8.0 is for every single platform. Period. If not even Nougat.
Yeah.
From Xander, I remember there being talk about Google having more control over Nexus, more like Apple and their specific OS. Could their new OS be exclusive like iOS is to Apple?
No way.
That's not Google's MO.
That is not Google's way. An exclusive OS would piss off all of their partners, and they do. Google's powerful, but they do care about what their partners think. Big guys like Samsung and LG, HTC.
Largely, that's how Google got to where it is. It's by escalating their partnerships.
Exactly, and to create like an exclusive OS for just his phones, no. What I can imagine happening is Google maybe, I don't know, adding software enhancements, not maybe to the operating system, but maybe apps or features that that are run on Nexus. But I can't imagine them being exclusive either. Like you could probably download them on your normal Android phone too. So
I could imagine them one day being more imposing on their third-party partners and be like, you must update your phones at the same time. We're going to make it as easy as possible. And then your custom makes it come after the fact.
Yes and no. Part of the problem is it's not like it's just a debate between the OEM or the handset maker and Google. It's the Google handset maker plus the carrier. So like unless Google somehow exerted full control over everyone, which they can't tell Verizon and AT&T to be like, hurry up with these updates. We need these updates on the phone. That's not going to happen, right? They have their own individual testing processes, and AT&T and Verizon were like, no. Well, we take our time.
So we got to wrap it up soon, but we've got a longtime fan, first-time commenter, Sameo. Shout out to Sameo for joining us and getting involved. How hard would it be for Google to create an OS that works for all platforms, like a universal idea Microsoft has been having?
If they want it, they'll do it.
Yeah.
If anybody can do it.
All products would run on anything, like any.
That's what it makes it sound like.
Competitor devices. Though?
Yeah, so like you could get this on an iOS
The Windows 10 idea, where when Microsoft says that it's Windows on all platforms, but that's not entirely true.
Right.
If Google would do that.
Yeah, I think if Google poured enough money into it, they could probably figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will they? Logically?
Maybe that's what Project Fuchsia is.
Yeah, we have yet to really find out.
We don't really know.
The lining is very gray with a hint of purple.
Look, so we do know that it's again for modern computers and phones is sort of the terminology they gave in that magenta kernel description. But I don't know, we'll see. Maybe it'll be extended to more things because it seems like phones and computers are kind of limiting at this point.
Everything can be a computer now too.
True.
Raspberry Pi sticks. I mean,
if there's a smart sneaker, everything is.
I reviewed a smart sneaker. It didn't make me play basketball any better. Still got totally killed.
That's another conversation for another day.
All right, let's wrap things up. That's a good point to end it. If you liked anything you saw or heard here, check us out on CNET. Also, our podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, FeedBurner, TuneIn Radio, and that's it.
Yeah.
All right.
Comment away anywhere you see a comment box.
Yep. See you all tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us.